All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of this amazing show. I got a special one here today because I'm with my man Mike T, better known as Michael Tucker, and we'll talk about everything that he is doing and even what what we've done in the past together. It'd be a great case study for creators. So if you are new here, make sure that you go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because this is going to be amazing. So today I have my special guest, Mr. Michael Tucker here. We're going to be talking about the amazing world of challenges, Mike, right? Amazing world of this whole entire challenge. I'm sure people have heard about challenges if you might have been on one, but a lot of people don't really break down the inner, like the kind of like the strategies and the foundations of what a challenge is, right? They just see the pages. They think it's easy, Mike. Oh, you just jump on Zoom, say a bunch of stuff, sell a product. And also, if you are new to this, challenges can be a way that when combined, we're going to talk about this with communities, how we can really revolutionize and transform your product if you have a digital product. So before we jump into that, man, introduce yourself to the people, Mike. Let them know who you are. And thanks for being here, man.
Hey, Justin, thank you so much, man, for having me on. It's truly, I think we've been known each other 3, 4 years now. I can't remember. We've worked a little bit in the past with some clients and some joint ventureships, and it's always awesome to work with you guys. So you guys definitely need to tap in with Justin. But you all, my name's Michael, and I've been in the virtual event space for about 6 to 7 years now. And what we have discovered with virtual events and what Justin has really just wanted you all to discover is beyond words. Like, it's crazy what can truly happen whenever you learn the power of virtual events and these 5 day or online challenges. We run an agency right now where we do these challenges and we run these virtual events for our clients. But, I truly believe, just after everything I've experienced over the past 6 to 7 years in this industry that Justin is taking you on a journey through, that there's no better way to expedite your influence. There's no better way to expedite your rapport with your potential customers than through running a virtual event. So I've been just specializing in this for years, learning, making a lot of mistakes. And I hope this conversation today allows you to glean from those mistakes, but then also, give you some new ideas on what you can do to grow your digital business.
I love it. I love it. All right. So let's jump in, man, because I think, and you're right, like we've been knowing each other for like a few years. And Mike has always been a straight up dude. I don't like to bring, everybody just some people just interview anyone, right? So, but Mike is actually doing it. Mike is actually like the behind the scenes guy. He works with a lot of people. We've worked on projects together. So if you definitely want to do a 5 day challenge, reach out to us. We'll help you out with it. But let's jump into it, Mike. So first question, man, for you is like, I know people may know what an online challenge is, or better known as a virtual event, but can you kind of break down what exactly is an online challenge? What is it?
Yeah, great question. And I actually, Justin, was asking myself the same exact thing about 6, 7 years ago. Just give you a little backstory before I give you the definition, because I think this is important for people to know the history. I was working out of college just at a part-time restaurant server, and I was looking for the thing, like a lot of entrepreneurs are. And so I ended up working just kind of as a helpmate in one of my friend's businesses. He was coaching me for free in another industry, and I was just working his business for free. And at the time, we knew virtual events were cool and worked because at the time, this was, 6, 7 years ago, Russell Brunson's webinar frameworks were just taking off. And so we were trying webinars, and a lot of people know what webinars are. They're like 60 to 90-minute trainings where you educate your potential customers and then present a service or an offer at the end. So we dove into that, but that didn't seem to work for our audience. We didn't really know why. We tried it 2, 3, 4 times. It just didn't work. And so one day, one of our friends reached out and said, "Hey, there's this brand new strategy and this brand new model called a challenge." And we said, "What the heck is a challenge?" And some of you all watching this may be in the same exact boat. You're saying, "What in the world is that?" And so we had no clue, zero clue. And he sat us down. And this was one of like the OGs of like that started the challenge movement, like legit. And he sat us down in an hour in Zoom and broke down how a challenge is just really a webinar broken up over 5 days. And in theory, it's just a virtual event where you take people on a journey over 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. You get to decide. But the point of a challenge is that you're not just teaching them on a virtual event for 3 days, 5 days, but you are challenging them. You get the word challenge. You're giving them call to actions. You're giving them assignments. You're actually pushing them into action during that virtual event. And so that's the difference between a challenge and just a normal webinar or a workshop, is that you're actually getting people to get closer, or I should say, you're empowering people to take actions to get closer to their dreams. And in return, you become the expert, right? People look at you. If Justin runs a 5-day virtual event about how to start your community, Justin's going to give them homework and assignments and things to do, aka challenges during that virtual event to get them closer to building their own community. And at the end, guess what they're going to do? They're going to look at Justin as the expert. And so, in simple, it's just a multi-day virtual event. It could be done in Zoom, it could be done in any other platform, but a multi-day virtual event that's not just teaching, but pushing people into action with the goal of ultimately selling them into a service or product later. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. You broke it down, man. So that's one of the best ones. At least, some people who I've interviewed in the past about challenges, they always just say, "Oh, it's an online event." But I think it's so much more than that, right? It's so much more than just an online event or a webinar, which kind of leads to the next question, Mike. Like, so, you know, somebody watching this, I'm pretty sure we've heard of webinars, hey, the best way to sell my digital product, my course or my service or my, whatever it is, we know is through, online events, right? You have to have some type of marketing channel or like, webinars or something along those lines. Now, here's a question though. I'm gonna throw you some questions that are not like the basics. Let's get the basics out the way. We got the basics out the way. We know what an online challenge is, but let's kind of gradually kind of, so to speak, go through the process. So, I want to host a challenge. What makes a challenge better, if you think it's better than a webinar? A webinar is like, hey, I present in 1 hour, I make the pitch. There's some people who will say a webinar is better than a challenge. But like me and you talk about,
Yeah, I think.
I've,
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And people actually, it's funny. One of my friends, she actually got flown out to meet with Russell Brunson for the first time and like hang out at his office. If you don't know who Russell Brunson is, founder of ClickFunnels, one of the biggest marketers in the world. And she got to fly out there. She asked the same question on stage. Literally, this was like 2 days ago from recording this. She had somebody telling her, "You need to run a challenge. You need to run a challenge." And then she sat down with Russell Brunson and said, "No, you need to have her just start out with a webinar." And so everybody's out there saying different things, right? Everybody has different opinions, but I'll say this. You don't need a webinar. You don't need a challenge if you're going to be selling a low ticket product. You mean, Michael, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Challenges are great at taking people through a sales cycle and condensing that sales cycle down because you can build so much rapport. And I love the 5-day challenges or 7-day or 3 days because I'm going to be honest, you can sell higher ticket programs. So if you have a higher ticket program and you're wanting to get that thing out into the world, whether it's $3,000, 5,000, 10,000. I mean, shoot, we've sold products all the way up to $75,000 on these 5-day virtual events. Then if you want to do that, then go with the challenge model. But you don't need that for a $50 product. You don't need a challenge for a $100 product. Why? Because someone once told me, and I can't quote this, so don't hold me to this, Justin, but someone told me before, and they said for about every hour that somebody spends with you on a virtual event, they have about $1,000 worth of buying trust or buying power with you.
exactly.
So what's that mean? What's that mean? So for about every hour that somebody sits in your webinar, sits in your challenge, you can charge about $1,000 on the back end on your product that you're going to be presenting. And whenever I was told that, I was like, boom, okay, that makes a lot of sense. How long are webinars? 60, 90 minutes, right? Oh, so I could charge about $1,000, right? And so that makes more sense. So I'll say, depending on your product price point, depends on the strategy, but also say how fast you want to get out there and take action. A lot of people that I talk with, they're like, hey, I just need to do something fast. I just want to take action. If that's you and you're like, hey, I don't have the capacity to do 5 days, but I just want to get out and do something, do a webinar, start out there. It's a great practice ground for a challenge. But if you're like, hey, I got a higher ticket product, I got a little bit of time, I can craft something great, then maybe stick with the challenge. But everybody's situation, Justin, is a little bit different, as we both know. But those are the kind of the two things I kind of base it on. Number one is product price, and then availability to build out the machine, because a 5 day challenge build out a lot different than a webinar. You know what I'm saying?
No, I feel you. It makes sense, because one of the things too that I remember I did this actually ties back to even doing conferences. I remember when I was doing you spoke at MemberCon, and right before I did MemberCon, I did the MemberCon the year before, and I was like,
Yep.
well, I think I'm gonna do a 2-day event. And then the person, she's like master at sales, and she hosts these events, and she helped me put my event together. And she said, a 3-day event is going to convert better than a 2-day event. She said, these are just based on numbers. And I asked her why. I said, why do you think a 3-day event would convert better than a 2-day event? And she said it. She just says, because you have to have time for trust, especially if you have a higher ticket product, or a person has to make an investment. You have to have more time to be able to
Yeah.
unload. So that's why
Yeah. They say
that's why I love it.
Yeah, they say the higher the immersion, the higher the conversion. So, ask yourself, how can I? And Justin, I think, bro, it's even outside of virtual events. How can I get them watching my YouTube videos? How can I get them listening to my podcast? How can I get them reading my social media posts? Because that's immersion too, right? So I think it goes beyond this virtual events.
Okay. Um, so yeah, the biggest thing is that is, and I think is so much important for people to understand, what is that they could do in order to take that. So, question for you, like what type of products, like what type of niches that you see can actually sell products through a virtual kind of online challenge?
That's a great question, man. I'm going to be honest. We've worked with a lot of people. We have people that have done physical products like supplements. We've had people that software, which, Justin, we've had experience with that directly, selling software. We've had people that are in the coaching space, that have coaching services, people that just have digital products. So there's many. Actually, I have one individual that sells life insurance that has been using, these events. So like there's so many different avenues. I'm not going to say every single person, but there's a way that you could probably pivot your business to make this work, right? So I would say the ones that really find the most value out of these events are the online entrepreneurs, somebody that has an online offering of some sort. But yeah, man, we've worked with SaaS companies, like the whole nine yards, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is like, what would you say is like the weirdest, like you say, I didn't even know you could sell like a challenge in this niche. What's like the weirdest niche or like service or something like you like, wow, and then did really
Well,
well? What would you say?
yeah, yeah. Like I was saying, like the life insurance one was one that surprised me. It's not like the most bizarre, but it just surprised me because nobody likes life insurance, right? Like it's boring topic. And so when we started running, some virtual events, some webinars and challenges to fill up their calendars and get them more clients, and it started working, I'm like, why do people want to sit through a 3 day, 5 day event to learn about life insurance? But it's all about the messaging, right? It's all about how you perceive your event to the audience, right? And so we were able to craft, and the client we were working with was able to craft a message that really showed them that, hey, life insurance is actually more important than you think it is, and what the industry's been telling you is a lie. And so we've had hundreds and thousands of people come through that event and make a lot of money. So that was one that surprised me, because even the most boring businesses that you think are boring can maximize virtual events, right? It's just all about your spin on the messaging.
I like that. I like that. Which let's kind of explore that a little bit, which just so people can walk away with something, right? So let's kind of explore your framework, because I like to look at you, Mike, as a like a master of. You've done so many challenges. Like there's some people who are teaching challenges that should not be teaching challenges, just to be honest. But you, like, I consider you like a master. You actually are the guy who works with people, challenges. You've seen it all from A to Z. So I want to know your framework, bro. Like, give the people some. Let's give them some. Let's give them some nuggets. Like, what would you say is like a framework for? Say if I'm let's I know there's a lot of components that go into how to do a challenge, but give me, like, if I'm teaching for 5 days, what am I teaching for those 5 days? Like, what am I teaching? How would you break that down in a sense?
Yeah, we can go deep in this, man. I wish we had more time. We may have to set up a secondary, call to go
Of course.
into all this a little bit deeper. But I'll say this, whenever it comes to creating content specifically, we always work our way from, the end to the front. So we say, okay, what's the end goal of our, the people that are going to be coming into our ecosystem, right? So for example, if we're targeting, let's just say, I'm thinking of the fitness industry in my head. If we're targeting people that are, burnout, tired, a little overweight, they're frustrated with not being able to, run around with their kids in their front yard or backyard, right? Then we have to start say, okay, what is the dream destination? What does that look like for them? Are we at now? We build content to bridge that gap, right? So we always say, what are their current realities? What are their pain points? What are their perceptions? What are all these things that are stopping them from getting to that North Star? And so the bridge between where they're at in their big destination and their dream destination is your content. Now, the issue, Justin, is a lot of people think with challenges, the more you teach, the better. When in reality, it's not always about how much you teach, but it's more about the quality of what you teach. And I think that goes for, quite a bit of things in life. It's not about quantity, but quality. But that's the big thing. It's like, hey, what content can I provide that's not only going to help them get closer to their goals, but can also transform them into the person that is ready to buy my product. And now that's pretty deep, so I don't want to go too deep into that. But long story short, we don't just call these things challenges. We call these transformational experiences. We ask ourselves, how can people come into our events thinking one way, acting one way, and by the time they leave, their complete life has changed, not just their health, but their mindset on, the way they live their life, how are they, perceiving money? How are they, there's so many different factors. And so we say, hey, we want to just transform their whole being. And so it starts with asking yourself that, what do I need to teach? What do I need to put into my, events to help make that happen? So normally what I tell people is you probably have a process that you put your clients through, right? If you're a fitness coach, you probably have a 10-step formula. You probably have a 7-step formula to getting people results. Are you going to be able to teach all 10 steps in that 5-day event or 3-day event? No, that's not possible. We all know you're not going to have enough time, right? And so what we normally do is if you already have an existing process that you take, your customers through, just give them part of that sales process and then your offer will complete it, right? And so a lot of times that's where we tell our customers to start if you already have that. So for example, if you're a fitness coach and, step one is, you have to identify what you're eating. Step two is you have to create a new nutrition plan. Step three is, find a gym partner. So, there's all these steps. You're just going to get them to take action on a few of those things, not all 7 or 10 steps, but just part of them so that at the end of it, they're like, wow, Justin, I just made more progress these 3 days, these 5 days than I have the past year, 2 years doing this alone. And then whenever it's time for you to present your offering and your program, they're like, it's a no-brainer because why would I want this progress to stop? I don't want this progress to stop. And so that's where we just look at the dream destination, Justin, and say, hey, what are the logical things we could teach to help get them there?
Okay. Okay. I love it. I love it. Because and the funny part is like, you know, people don't understand, like, you need something. And that's the whole point of doing something like a launch. I mean, like a 5-day challenge. You need something where you can get a variety of customers into a process, nurture them, have them build trust, and then they buy, right? You need something to launch because, when you try to launch slow, right? I call it there's a slow process where, you launch ads and you're trying to figure out what's working and you're trying to get those one-off customers or organic. It takes a while, right? And I remember my life changed when I did a product launch. And I don't know if you remember, I mean, you've heard of Jeff Walker, right? So, back in 2000, this is how much of an OG I am, right? They call me an OG now, but like 2013 through 2014, we were doing like 4-part video series, which are the same. It's the same thing as a kind of like a challenge, right? All these things, a lot of
Right.
people don't realize all these things are the same thing, just in different form.
Just packaged different. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like this video released on September 5th, and then the next video released on September 7th. And it was like crazy. And then when we did a really big launch one time, and we did like 2,000 customers, but it was a small ticket product, but I was just so blown away. And from then it was like, wow, like challenges, and it wasn't called a challenge, this was a product launch. And it was just like, man, it was crazy. It was wow. So here's the final question. I think we got to do a part two. We got to do a part two on this, because I think there's a lot of things we could talk about with challenges, but I think you gave a good framework of how it works. But talk about, like, if I were just starting off and, I wanted to put together a challenge, right? I want to put together a challenge. What would you say is what you're seeing? And I know, I want you to kind of touch on community, because I think it's important that, now we're talking about what's working, right? It used to be, you had influence, and that still works, but you've been finding success in like combining communities, finding customers, sending people from communities into challenges. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say this. The community and the challenge play is a big opportunity right now, and I think those who capitalize and use it are gonna, far outpace those that don't. I mean, you just look at, Alex Hormozy. I mean, he's pretty much doing it with the school games, right? I mean, I'll go on that later because not everybody may know who that is, but there's a lot of people using it. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't too sure about it until one of my friends, he mentioned it to me and was like, hey, like we need to test this out. And once we did, it was phenomenal. And so the theory behind this, Justin, is that right now, the market we're in, as we're recording this, I don't know, people may be watching, a year later. I'm not sure when they're going to be watching. But the time we're writing this, the economy here in the US is pretty trash, right? A lot of people don't have money to spend. And so there's some people that have money, but they're more cautious on how they want to spend it, right?
Mhm.
Which is fair. That's fair game. So what worked during COVID or when, we were in our peak economy here in the US isn't quite working now. You have to nurture your list. You have to nurture your potential customers more. And the reason why we love the community and the challenges combined together is because it does that nurturing for us. We can go ahead and we can get somebody into a community. And if you haven't, dove into what a community is yet with Justin, like you're crazy, go ahead and learn about that. But long story short, you get them into a continuity membership based program on the front end, nurture them. You may do some education, some classes, and then everybody who joins that community, you tell them, hey, your membership comes with, a ticket to this 5-day event. And so you already got, some of their money. So you have a little bit of trust. Just think of every time somebody gives you money, that's giving them your trust, right? And so, they give you a little bit of trust, even though it may only be $50 worth, $100 worth. You start building trust. You started nurturing them in that community. And what we do is we run a challenge just to those community members. And I'm going to be honest, if you can do this right, if you can nurture the community members right, and you set this all up correct, you can have super high conversions. It really builds good morale within your community because you can still what do you call it? You can ascend people from your community into your high ticket product through that challenge. But those that don't buy the challenge or the high ticket product on that challenge, they'll stay in the community longer because they just went through a crazy 5-day experience with you. So just a high level overview, Justin, and I'll shut my mouth here. Sell your community, but have plans on running a challenge to those community members to ascend them into a higher program. And it works phenomenally. We've been doing it amazingly well. One thing I would say, just a few tips here, is when you're doing this though, make sure you're doing the challenges more frequently than less frequently, because especially if you're only charging $50 a month, $30 a month, people's attention span tends to get lost pretty quick. So you want to run a challenge pretty soon after they have purchased their membership. Um, but man, it's just crazy. You can ascend people up at your higher ticket programs, and then it just builds such good morale within your community for those that can't move forward. And so that's just been the secret for us. I mean, there's not much. I mean, I'm not going to say there's not a lot of secrets in the background, but I mean, it's pretty simple framework. And Justin, I know you and I have talked about implementing it some more for you and some other people. And I think just right now it's untapped.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think the reality of the situation is we're in the trust phase of the digital era, right? The trust phase is, how can I trust you more, right? Like, you have to prove to me that you are not like a scammer. Whether people got scammed or not, they may feel like they're going to get scammed because they heard from someone else that they got scammed, right? Even if they haven't. So like I was just telling a client this yesterday, the reality of the situation is you're going to have to nurture people. So that's going to be like putting out content, putting them in the community, giving some good karma, nurturing them. The key word is indoctrination, right? You have to indoctrinate people to say, okay, this person is for me. And so when they join, because now, remember, Mike, it was like you could sell a free event all day long. Now people see a free event. Like if you get people in a room or for a free event, it's like, now the currency is time. It's not the money, it's time, right? So people say, oh, I don't have a lot of time. So you have to prove to people that you can be trusted and that they can trust, what you say is true. All right. So listen, man, I wanted to we could do a whole 2-hour launcher challenge masterclass, right? But definitely we'll do a part two, and also we'll do a class together, because me and you are working together on some clients for some challenges, man. But I got a few last questions for you. Okay,
All right, let's do
I
it.
do this to everyone. It's like called rapid questions. You answer these in a couple sentences, like no long explanation. So first question is, how long have you been an entrepreneur, Mike? How long?
Oh man, I mean, since high school. So it's been a long time. So let's just say
Yeah, that was like probably
10,
like
15 plus years.
was that like 40 years ago, right? You were in high school.
Yeah, 40 years ago.
So let's say, like, you're talking to you're 15 years ago, you're in high school, right? And then let's just say you're there and you made a bunch of mistakes. What would be the number one lesson that you would say from 15 years ago that you would tell the current day Mike today? Like the biggest lesson, what would you say that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, hey, Mike, get good at one thing, get good at one thing. And I think so many people, even maybe you listening or watching right now, dabble in a little bit of everything. And I'm going to be honest, their greatness doesn't come when you're doing 8, 9 things at a time. I think people say, oh, well, millionaires have 7 streams of income, but most of the time, those 7 streams of income come from the same exact industry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And they didn't have 7, income streams from the very jump. They got good at one thing. They built one business. And so that was one of the mistakes that I made, Justin, was trying too many things at once and, having shiny object syndrome. Just lock in on something for a year, 2 years. What's the worst thing that happened? It doesn't work after a year or two, but you got better at the skill. You got better at what you were doing, and you learn. And, I think just some people don't commit long enough to one thing. And so that's what I would tell my future self is like, keep committing to one thing because it'll pay off in the end.
I love that. I love that. Last question. Um, Last question. I know people say, what are your top 5 books? What would you say? Well, let me ask you this first question. Have you ever read any book more than one time?
Great question. I read The Magic of Thinking Big, I think a couple times. I love that book, Magic of Thinking Big. I'm sure you've read it, Justin.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one I've probably read multiple times. I've read many books, The Richest Man in Babylon, love that book. I'm big into like investing and stuff too. So I've loved Rich Dad, Poor Dad. They have actually a big investing book that's like 400 or 500 pages. I think it's like the ABCs of investing, I think it's called. But yeah, those are a few books. I listen to podcasts more than books, though. I love podcasts and YouTube. I'm just a visual guy.
What's the number one podcast or book you would ever recommend to? If I was talking to you right now as an entrepreneur and I would say, or a creator, I would say, hey, Mike, I don't need 5 books because 5 books are going to overwhelm me, right? Remember, you just said the power of one. If you were to say the most impactful book or podcast that you would recommend, what would it be? Number one.
I would say there's a lot of podcasts that I have been tuned into. Mine, I'm gonna give you a multiple, and I know you said just one, but I'm gonna give you multiple. I really loved, and this may be a cliche. A lot of people know it's a big podcast, but really love Ed Milet's podcast for mindset. I really, really enjoyed that one. Whenever it comes to business, though, there's many out there. I really have fallen in love with Dan Martell's. I just love Dan. Which Justin, you know Dan because he's a software guy, right?
Mhm.
So really fallen in love with his strategy to business. And there's several others out there that I, look to for marketing, but always have enjoyed diving into his.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, listen, Mike, this has been amazing, man. We're gonna do a part two. For those of you that are listening into this, make sure you tap in to Mike T. I call him Mike T, but Mike Tucker, man, thanks for being here. Where can people find out more about you? Give a little call to action where people follow you. We'll have some of obviously Mike's links, everything below, but tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to I'm most active on Instagram. You can go to official Michael Tucker there. Just shoot me a message. Let me know you came from Jay's show or this video. And then if you want, Justin, we're actually getting ready to start our podcast back up and just interviewing successful online entrepreneurs, just purely purely information driven podcast, no sales or anything. And we actually have an existing YouTube channel for that's called $1 Million Secrets. So either one works, hit me up, go on and check it out. But Justin, we actually had you on the show, what was that, about a year ago? We took a little break just to kind of revamp some stuff, but maybe in the future when you're back in the States, we'll get you back on.
Yeah, man. We do the virtual, but yeah, I gotta definitely come on. It was a good show. All right, man, Mike. Thanks for coming on. Everybody, make sure you follow Mike. All the links are below. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, and let us know what was your big takeaway, big idea from launching challenges, and let us know when you're gonna launch your challenge. All right, Mike. Appreciate you being on. We'll see you guys
All right,
soon.
see you guys. Peace. Thanks.